Morning, and thank you for joining us this morning for our city council budget session. We'll go ahead and get started. Connie, could you please call the roll?
Cheatham,
Here.
Lurick, Mangum,
Here.
Nichols,
Here.
Paulson,
Here.
Black,
Here. Thank you. Council President Lurick has been excused today, so she won't be joining us. But with that, we'll go ahead and jump into agenda item number 2. Is our police department. Roger Scheid, police chief, will be in attendance to give a presentation. I'm assuming that what we got is different than what's in these. Okay.
Roger Scheid, Chief of Police, Pocatello Police Department. I'll let Eric go ahead and introduce
Eric
himself.
Anderson, Deputy Chief.
And then I've got Amy, my executive assistant, back there in case we need any clarification on anything to help keep me straight. So we'll start off with slide 1, some accomplishments that we've been able to get done last year. One of them was our men's locker room. It was constructed in 1992 when we moved into this building. It was well needed, and there's still a few little tweaks that we're waiting as you deal with construction companies. There's delays and everything, so we've got a few little things to finish up there. The front lobby interview room that we just finished up, which has been a godsend for us, so we could get people out of the lobby when they're telling us their stories that may or may not be inappropriate for people to hear. We've been able to pull them into this private interview room where it's more appropriate. And then our Flock license plate reader system that's up and running. We've already had several wins on that, locating some dangerous people. So some of our future goals, eventually we're going to have to look at upgrading our body cameras and our dash cams. As we get replacement vehicles, we do replace them with newer stuff, but we have some dash cams that are very old, so we're probably going to need to look at replacing some of those in the future. And then that would go into a real-time crime center. So that's also going to be a future goal of developing a real-time crime center with that updated information. An upgrade to Taser 10s. We have a plan to upgrade 2 Taser 10s, new technology, and the back parking lot. We've got, if you go back and look at that concrete fence, it used to be straight. It's not straight anymore. It's the weather has done things to the ground, and those concrete slats are no longer really available. We have a hole in it right now. We're working on replacing. So we've got a plan to fix that. I've been working with the mayor, and we're going to get with Tom and with Richard Bigelow and develop that plan to fix that back fence and secure it.
Councilmember Cheatham.
2 things.
Yes.
If you could go back to that slide, please.
Yes.
Could you describe, you mentioned the real-time crime center?
Yes.
Could you tell us what that is?
So right now we've kind of got half of a real-time crime center. So what that would do is, like, we got it because over at Fleet we have the cameras that on all the intersections, along with our license plate readers. It would be nice to consolidate and have somebody in there. So Nampa PD is one of the only real-time crime centers in the state. So it's staffed with somebody. So as a crime occurs, that person inside that real-time crime center is relaying actual information to the officers that are responding. And that would include a drone, launching a drone as a first responder. That's future technology or existing technology that's out there that some agencies are going to. So they'll launch a drone to give them actual intelligence before the officer even gets there. They've tracked down kidnappers, shoplifters, violent criminals. I visited the Spokane Valley Real-Time Crime Center where it's staffed, and as they have a large event, let's say we have when we have a winning season at Idaho State University for the football team, and the dome is packed, that would be a reason for a real-time crime center to monitor what's going on up there, to have cameras watching what's going on, and if something happens, it could be anything from a hit and run to an active shooter, and that would be providing real-time data. Flock makes a system called Flock OS where we get cameras to filter in from everywhere into that real-time crime center, so that, and that would benefit police, fire, and ambulance. So if something happened at Hawthorne Middle School, a fire alarm gets pulled, they'll be able to push a button, it would stream to their laptop computer so they could see if there was an actual working fire or if it's a false alarm.
So is this, if I could follow up, Mr. Mayor, this is then not a part of dispatch? This is a separate
Correct.
system, staffing, building, equipment?
Correct.
Okay. Second
We-
question.
No building, because we have a facility already over at Fleet. So
So you, a lodge?
that would
put it
be
over there.
something that we would look at, yes, locating over there. They already have the infrastructure. Why build another building when we don't have to?
Okay.
Because I don't want to build another building.
So some equipment and some personnel?
Correct.
Okay. Second thing, the back parking lot, that enclosed secure area, is that police only?
Right now, there's a few IT vehicles that park back there and a few custodians from building that park back there.
So will this necessarily then be just a police budget?
Yes,
Yes.
it will be, because mostly it's police back there, and that's what we have. The others are back there because that's where you can park. There's some room for them to park in it, and they're all back in the back there. Instead of parking up here and going clear, they can just come in the back.
Okay.
And we've saved through Fund 78 for several years, so, I mean, we planned on paying for the whole thing.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So the next slide is just some stats to give you an idea of what we did last year. We did 42 community events. We had over 40,000 contacts with the public. Dispatch received over 92,000 calls, and out of those, over 18,000 were 911 calls. So they're very busy in there.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Can you tell me what the contact with public is? Are those patrol officers, or who is counted in that number?
So we have three divisions. We have patrol, investigations, and support services. So that includes all three divisions. To give you a snapshot of that, last year for reports, we had 25,550 reports. Out of that, 48% of those were 2 officer or more calls. The rest are traffic stops, field interviews, a citizen contact where they'll call out on the radio, but they don't generate a report because someone might have just needed some information and they got flagged down and they checked out with dispatch through that. It could be contacts at the schools that the officers have with students where they will call out with a contact or a parent or a situation like that at a sporting event.
If 2 officers respond to something, is that 2 contacts with the public or 1?
It's 1.
Okay. Thank you.
So where we're at with our staffing, we aligned with what the federal rules are. So we moved one of our personnel, or 2 of our personnel, from non-exempt from exempt to non-exempt, and our numbers are from 149 to 147 now. So there's a reduction of 2 people. The majority of our staffing, it takes up our budget. I mean, we're people-oriented department. We're a fully responsive department. There's some departments, they don't respond to certain calls for service. We respond to all the calls for service, and that there's a lot of personnel costs, and that's what the wages and benefits. I'd like to thank Heather for her efforts in negotiating that union contract and getting that done and getting it done early, so that we could be here talking about we've got numbers to fill in. So shout out to her, and then thank you to Theron and Chantel and the rest of the crew, and Ann for working and doing a lot of hard work behind the scenes on that. Next slide is some of our permits and fees, grants, and a snapshot of that. Obviously, you're going to see a reduction in the daycare licensing there, where we took in the money for daycare licensing. We're no longer going to do that because of the change in the state law. I think I jumped ahead on the personnel slide. So there's our personnel. Our operating cost, it's going up 3%. The cost of business is unfortunately going up. Our ILETs, which we have to have in dispatch, goes up 3% every year. Cost of Spillman goes up every year. The next slide that we have here is a snapshot of our more expensive things. Our rotation on our vehicles. We've got that plan with Fleet, working with Tom to keep the vehicles rotated. We usually do 4 a year. The big change is we went through our budget this year, and things that we had spent money on in the years past where we no longer need to spend money on, we had to move to hardware software. Every investigation that we now have revolves around this. So we don't farm our phones out anymore. We have in-house equipment and training and personnel that know how to download cell phones and get that mission critical information. And everything with technology is shifted in the last 2-3 years. So we've had to make those adjustments, and that's where we made those adjustments.
Chief, can you back up? You mentioned ILETs, and
Yes.
that continues to go up. Would you explain to the public what ILETs is
Yes.
and why we have it?
So that's the Idaho information that when dispatch will enter, like when an officer calls in a driver's license check or a registration check or a warrants check, they use the ILET system. And you have to have that in dispatch, and you have to stay plugged into that system, or else we wouldn't be able to get that data. And the state has raised it 3% every year. We have no control over that, and we have to have that system so we get that critical information. If we stop somebody on a traffic stop or we're on an accident and we're getting that information for the accident report, sometimes people don't know their driver's license number, they don't have their driver's license, and we can run them by name and date of birth and get their driver's license number to fill out that information on the accident, or to find out if they're wanted or information like that. And it's something that every agency has, and every agency's charged based off of your how big your agency is. So it's something we have to pay, and the state used to take the majority of it, but that shifted about 5-6 years ago. Actually, more than that. I'm getting the older I get, the more like time seems like it was just yesterday. So it was probably more closer to 10 years ago where they made that shift. And
But ultimately, that is an unfunded mandate from the state.
yes, 100%.
There's no other way to know and get the information that you need,
Yeah.
and the state requires you to have it,
Yes.
pretty much, so.
Yep.
Okay, and it just continues to go up. Councilmember Mangum?
On your first slide, accomplishments and future goals. For those 3 future goals, do we have any prices or costs associated here?
Eric, you want to talk about the back lot? I know you've been working on that.
We're hoping to be able to finish the back lot with fence, upgraded gates, and whatever Tom is gonna need to do for the actual parking lot. We're hoping to be under 400,000. It's hopeful. That's kind of where we're at. But we need to put a building out there. We want to put a structure out there where we can enclose our SWAT vehicle, our command vehicle, our CNT vehicle, so they're enclosed, so they're not getting beat up and aged by the weather. So we're gonna have to put that building out for a bid. Hopefully 150,000 for that building. But
Ish.
yeah, ish.
So
On top of the 400,
No.
or all
I'm
inclusive? Okay,
hoping total.
okay.
Anytime you have police, it's a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it's and we have like the major said, we've been able to put some funds in Fund 70 that will help with that.
Okay, so with upgrading to Taser 10 and the body cam and dash cams, do we have those kind of priced out also?
Taser 10s are probably, well, we have a plan there. If we were just to purchase them outright, you're talking about $500,000. We have current Taser 7s that we would look at trying to sell to a smaller agency to try to offset those costs. But again, when we're talking future,
Yeah.
you know, a year or two that we can look at. I mean, there's no way we can do all of them, but you're looking at probably close to $500,000 for each of them, all
Okay.
three.
So to give you an example of we could probably offset about half the cost by selling our current tasers. I've already had discussions with Bannock County because they're in a platform that probably Taser's no longer going to support. So I've already had some discussions about them possibly purchasing our existing tasers and making that ask at a lot less and planning for that by looking at, you know, some budgetary things in the future.
Okay.
Councilmember Cheatham?
2 issues. What will the Taser 10 do that 7 won't?
So the Taser 10 has 10 cartridges in it. It has the ability to tase somebody from 40 feet rather than where our standoff's at now. 7,
Yeah, you don't want to be much more than.
10 feet. So it's right now, if one shot, you have to have both probes hit. And then there's a second shot in there that if both probes hit, you fire a second shot hoping that another one of those probes hit. With the Taser 10, it's 1 shot, 1 probe, and any of those probes can connect. So if you hit 2 probes and it doesn't get the desired effect, you can fire a 3rd probe. They penetrate clothing a little bit better. The technology is a lot more advanced. You don't have to reload cartridges because you have 10 shots in one, and the distance is a lot further.
More distance, for sure.
Yes.
The problem with the 7s is every step you're further out is the more the spread of the 2 probes. So at some point, you're not going to have contact. And then if you're wearing a big old thick coat or something, it's ineffective.
Right.
So it's just more technology that's more advanced, that's more effective for greater distance.
And the darts are more effective on the Taser 10 versus the 7. I visited Axon headquarters and had a chance to fire one, and I actually have a virtual reality headset if you'd like to see the demonstration. They sent up a virtual reality headset so you could see it. So if you'd like to see that, I have that headset.
Okay. Second issue, talking back to ILETs. We're paying in advance for that service for a year. Are we paying retroactively depending on how much we use?
I'll let Eric address that.
No, we just get an ILETS bill. So it's kind of like a lot of our software and the things we have. Spillman will get a Spillman bill for $30,000. It's just for the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they will. It's based off of the amount of officers that we have that use it.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Yes. Councilmember Paulson?
Under expenditures, expenses, I'm not sure where it would fall under, and I don't know the exact term, but one psychiatric nurse called it a mobile crisis team. Does that exist, or are there plans to do that, and would that be under operations, personnel?
A psychiatric.
A psychiatric nurse called it a mobile crisis team to respond to something and try to get psychiatric help.
Do you have a mobile crisis?
Yes.
Yes, that there is a crisis team. If somebody is in crisis, we will call them and they will respond. It's something that we have been using. It's something new that has come out within this year. Captain Dillon's really the leader of that he meets with those groups once a week, but there is a crisis team that we try to use as often as possible.
I believe the term is CART team. Is that what they're calling them?
I'm not sure.
And they go out, and when we call them, once we've gone out and stabilized the scene and it's secure and safe for them to go in, then we'll call them. If they're available, they come out. But it's something that's new and new to our area as well within the last year.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nichols.
Is that crisis team entirely in-house, or do you work with outside agencies?
Yeah, they're not city employees.
Okay.
It's an outside agency, and they haven't charged us a dime,
All right, thank you.
so, as well as the crisis center, so.
Super. Any other questions, council? All right, thank you. Then we'll move to agenda item number 3 is the Street Operations Department. Tom Kirkman, Director of Public Services, and Mike Neville, Street Manager, will be in attendance to give a presentation.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Tom Kirkman, Director of Public Services. I'm joined by Mike Neville, our street manager. Mike runs the day-to-day operations and keeps us all out of trouble. So we're gonna try and fly through these. We got 5 funds to talk about, so we're gonna move along pretty quick between all the departments that we control. So we'll start with our head count. You'll see that in FY25 we added two positions. Those are the 2 hybrid positions that we share with Parks and Rec. So during the winter months, we have 4 employees to help plow snow, which has been a huge blessing to us. And then during the summer, those 4 employees work for Parks that I think Ann talked about the other day, said have been really helpful for her as well. So that's been it was a very creative solution, and it's working out very well. So we're excited about that. So salaries and benefits, you'll see that for 26, we're a little over 4 million. Our budget last year, or for this year, excuse me, is 3.8. You can see kind of our actuals in 24. You can see some of the difficulties we've had in the past hiring people, getting CDL drivers and operators. We didn't have a big jump in our cost. It was just we weren't able to hire people, and we were running on a pretty shoestring crew because of the difficulty finding CDL drivers. So we've made some adjustments to that.
Councilmember Mangum.
So, and I remember us talking about this, but if you can please remind me, those 2 that we had hired and their hybrid personnel, how is their salary being factored? Is it the 6 months with you and then 6 months in Parks, or how are we factoring that when it comes to?
Yeah, to make it as easy as we could, basically, street services pays for 2, Parks and Rec pays for 2, and then we just shift the bodies back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah, we were trying to think of ways to make it easy, and we thought that's probably the easiest way.
Yeah.
Councilmember Cheatham.
Talking of CDLs, how well used is our trainer piece of equipment?
Absolutely, it's being used a lot. It's very helpful. The biggest thing that we've seen is the wear and tear on the vehicles. We had an operator a couple years ago that went out in a snowplow truck and ended up blowing the transmission up and taking the clutch out because he wasn't as seasoned as we thought he was. And so now we're able to put those folks on the simulators when we get them to be able to test how they operate the vehicle. So that's kind of been the biggest benefit, is proofing who's actually capable of jumping into the truck. But we use those for our CDL training program a lot. So we're actually, today, PD's got a group coming over to use the driving simulator for their stuff too. So.
When we initially talked about acquiring that piece of equipment, there was some talk about down the road, once we got our people trained, we might be able to lease that out to other agencies for their training also, because everybody's having the same problem. Is there any progress in that?
Yeah, we've had a lot of people reach out, and we've extended the offer, but nobody's come. So there's been a couple. I think Chubbuck came down, the state came down, but not using it religiously, no. So, but we have made those offers. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so personnel, sorry, go back to personnel. We're still struggling a little bit with that, with getting bodies. I think we're down 3 right now. And so it's tough right now. There's a lot of money to be made in the construction trades right now. So we have a lot of folks chasing money. So we're just pushing through that and doing what we can do. We're working harder now on getting people with less experience, and we're training them we're trying to find people with a good work ethic because we can teach them how to run a backhoe, to drive a truck. And we're having pretty good success with that, I think. So, okay, revenues. So from probably 2020 to 2023, we're very fortunate to get a lot of big one-time monies from the state. So you can see our revenues for 24, we're, a little over 10.5 million. Those one-time monies have kind of started to dry up. And so you can see in 25, we took a pretty big hit, almost $2 million. They are up a little bit this year. As far as the categories, taxes is the city tax and the county road and bridge. Intergovernmental is highway user dollars. We get a certain percentage of fuel purchases throughout the state. And then general operations is right-of-way maintenance from the utilities, as well as miscellaneous revenues we get. Like when we do work for, let's say, the water department, that's a revenue that comes in. With those one-time monies, what we've tried to do is push those into reserves because we kind of knew that was going to dry up at some point. And so we were able, what our hope is to be able to kind of parse those out over the next few years to try and, make some much-needed improvements in the department. Expenses, you can see personnel's up a little bit. Our operations, we went up to 3%, a small amount there. Equipment and leases, we do lease 4 pieces of equipment, a road grader, a backhoe, a loader, and then a roller. It's getting to the point with interest rates where we're starting to see it makes more fiscal sense to buy than it is to lease. If it does make sense, we really, for certain pieces of equipment, we like leasing because 3 of these 4 are very essential for emergency situations. We never know when that's going to hit, but we want a very sound piece of equipment when those emergencies do hit. Interfunds is what they are, and so expenses is 7.2 in just the general budget, and then we have our capital. You can see in 24 when we had some good monies, we were purchasing a lot of equipment. Street Services now has the honor of being the oldest fleet in the city. We've taken over from Parks, so we're now the ones.
Good job, Ann.
Yeah, we've got her up. So, and then our capital infrastructure is our pavement program. You can see when we had those monies, we threw a lot of money into that to try and get as much bang for our buck while we had that. For 25, you see we had to make some reductions. For 26, we've made some reductions to our equipment purchases. And so the bottom line of our expenditures is about 700,000 less than our revenues. So we're asking to use reserve amounts to keep that 1.6 million in pavement, and then another 200 grand to bring that heavy equipment up to the 957,000. So those asks are already worked into this. We really want to try and keep our pavement management budget growing as much as we can. Up until a couple of years ago, it's been $1 million since I started in 2001. And you can imagine that it doesn't really go as far as it used to. So we'd like to take some of those one-time money reserves and just try and keep offsetting that and using that for our pavement program. And then using it to try and get that average age of our equipment up. With that 1.6, our pavement condition index, which is our network condition, which means how good are our roads. Currently, we're sitting at a 72 on our PCI scale. The national average is 60 to 65. We have an independent third party come and evaluate these roads for us. And so when we hear people say that roads in Pocatello aren't any good, that's just not true. And we have the empirical data to back that up. So that's the street department. We'll move into our federal aid projects. This is Fund 70 is what we call it. For 26, we're looking to do some Main and Arthur curb extensions. Those will be bulb outs like you see in historic downtown, down through that corridor to try and improve some of the pedestrian safety through there. The Flandreau safety improvement is the section at Flandreau and Yellowstone on the north side of the Costco approach where those yellow candlesticks are. Those are a temporary solution. We plan on with this money putting in a concrete island to try and improve the safety of that intersection. Those yellow candlesticks have been a huge benefit already. So that's a very tricky intersection because you have a street so close to a signal. And then the High Line of Pearl signal, we got this money from the state. In fact, we can go to the next page. That's $2 million. We already have that money from the state. We're just not going to be able to get that completed this year, so we're just rolling that money. All three of these, we're just rolling them into next year because we kind of, are running out of time in 25 to get them done. So that's all we have on streets.
Councilmember Mangum, and then Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this money, is there any time frame on it, on when it has to be expended?
On the federal aid stuff.
For those 3 projects that
Yeah,
you mentioned,
yeah.
yeah.
So, not really. We just want to get them done as soon as possible. I believe the 2 million has a little bit of a time crunch on it, but going through 26 shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, is there match money dedicated for those projects?
Yeah, that is the match money on the 2, and then the 2 million is actually to pay for the signal. So for the Highline signal, Highline and El Rancho signal, we were only responsible for paying the design costs on that. We did pay the design costs in this year's. It's still being designed, so we're still paying those. It's like 150,000. So basically that's our match kind of. And then the other 2 values are the match. So,
I'm confused by that.
okay, so let's go back. So Main and Arthur curb extension, the 51,000 is what the city is paying towards the project. And then the Flandreau safety, the 17,000 is what the city's paying as the match. Hopefully that cleared that up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councilmember Paulson.
For the Highline and Pearl traffic signal, is it just a traffic signal?
Yeah, so we have a plan to widen Highline from Flandreau to Pocatello Creek. And so we were able to secure money to put this signal in. So there will be a traffic signal, plus there will be some added lanes that will taper down, a couple hundred feet past. And then that gives us, when we can secure some more money, we can grab on and keep moving. So it's kind of a phased approach for that.
Other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, we'll move to fleet.
Yeah, we'll go to agenda item 4, fleet.
Sorry about that. I jumped right in.
No, that's all right. I like it.
And if you're okay, if we could do fleet and fuel while Teresa's up here, that would, and then sanitation last.
You don't want Teresa to walk back and forth?
Well, that's up to her.
I mean, she's getting, and we've got a step challenge, a walking
Yeah.
challenge going on here.
So I'm joined by Teresa Pocatello, our fleet manager. Once again, she runs the day-to-day operations, and I can't say enough about all 3 of the managers, what a great job they do for us. So okay, head count. So fleet's been pretty static since we started it. We have 1 exempt and 12 non-exempt employees. We can go to salaries and benefits. Salaries, you'll notice in FY '25, there's a jump in benefits or salary and benefits there. That was actually an error in 25's budgeting. There was an exempt person that was added in by accident. And so we've corrected that in 26. So that higher amount is just due to a clerical issue. And you can see the struggles we've had as well in street, as in fleet, as in sanitation from our actuals. We had a hard time hiring mechanics. So you can see why those personnel actuals are pretty low. Revenues. So we basically, the way we set revenues in fleet is we have now 5 years of data on department repairs. And so what we do, when we first started fleet, we were using vehicle equivalent units to set prices. Well, we now have data for the last 5 years. So how we're setting our fleet revenues now is we take that 5-year average of what those costs were, and we use that for the following year. And then the next year, we'll use 6 years, and so on and so on. We found that that's been way more accurate in how departments are being charged. And we've seen some pretty significant reductions in some of the departments due to that. When we first started Fleet, we didn't know what we didn't know, so we used these VEUs, and we were just a little high on those, so we're trying to get that cost back in line.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Cheatham.
Mr. Mayor, Tom, what departments are not included in Fleet?
So PRT, Airport, and WPC, and Fire. Those are the 4 that are,
Everybody else is in there.
everybody else is okay. Okay. Expenses, you can see the personnel we talked about, operations and maintenance. You can see operations is up. What we've experienced since we've started this journey in 2019 is we've seen anywhere from 15 to 25% increases in parts. During COVID, I think it was 8% one year, and they've just steadily gone up and up and up. So that's what's kind of driving those operation costs up. The nice thing is, Teresa and I review work orders all the time. Our labor costs are pretty static. We're not, it's not like we're spending more time fixing things. It's just the cost escalations of parts that's really the problem. And it's a very frustrating frustrating problem for us and the departments. Not only has the price of parts shot up, but the availability is also extremely difficult. We can have a vehicle sitting for months waiting on stuff, and it's just the supply chain's never really recovered. So, and then the interfund.
Tom,
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yeah. So do all of these expenses ultimately get billed back to the departments that are using the fleet services?
Yeah, so we just project our revenues, and then we charge actuals. Like, for instance, the street department last year had 2 dump trucks that blew up engines. Well, those are like, $75,000 repairs. And so sometimes our expenditures are way high, but the revenues match it. And so you'll see sometimes at the end of the year, we come and do a budget amendment for more authority, because we just try and balance. We try and leave that, whatever our revenue projections are is what our expenditures are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then we have $50,000 set aside for diagnostics and shop equipment. Newer vehicles are very challenging. It's getting to the point where they're becoming more expensive than old ones. We've actually done a few experiments with the street department. We've taken some older dump trucks and basically did like a restoration on them. Because when we get like a new vehicle, they usually show up with a check engine light on right off the bat. The emissions problems are out of control. The tough part about the emissions problem is it works great for over-the-road trucks, let's say, because you're constantly driving them at elevated RPM. But when they idle a lot, it causes havoc on the particulate filters. And so we have a lot of problems with that. Our DEF quality sensors, stuff like that is becoming very difficult. And so as we purchase new vehicles to replace old vehicles, the other part of that is the diagnostics are getting very complicated. Without going into the weeds too much, they now use what's called CAN bus to communicate with all the modules. You can have a car that used to have no computer that now has 15. And they communicate on these little teeny wires. And so you can imagine a garbage truck bouncing through a landfill. Those wires fail, and then it spends a lot of time diagnosing that. And so we started putting in this money for diagnostic equipment and then specialized equipment that we need to repair as we get new assets. We are trying to standardize everything we can. We try and, on all of our big trucks, we're trying to stay with Peterbilt and Kenworth because they're a local operation here. They have a presence here, not only for that to support the local, it helps us not buy diagnostic equipment for 15 different brands. So, and that's it on that.
Questions, council? Okay, thank you. Now we're jumping to fuel, you said.
While she's pulling that up, I will tell you that we do a cost per asset analysis on our fleet program. Parts have gone up. We average at about 20%, and we are still, the cost to maintain an asset in 2020, we are still lower than that cost today. So I think that's a huge attaboy to our fleet department. Like, costs are up because of parts, but we are maintaining assets at a lower cost than we used to, so. Okay, fuel, this is kind of like fleet. We just project a revenue based upon a set fuel price. And then we bill the departments as they use it. So it could be 1.2 or it could be 1, depending on usage. It just fluctuates. Whatever, we bid fuel every 2 weeks to try and keep a competitive cost. And so if we project a certain price for the year, but it comes in really low, that just means the department saved money. If it comes in a little high, they just pay a little bit more. So it's a pretty fluid, no pun intended, fund.
Councilmember Cheatham.
Some clarification there then. You're projecting in 26, 315 for unleaded.
Yes,
That's what you're going to charge them. If that price goes down, then they would be charged less?
that's correct. They get charged actual.
What's the markup between cost and charge?
Yeah, so we've got that.
Is that coming up?
So for, let's just say for unleaded, what our base price we're forecasting is $2.80 a gallon. We have a 19-cent fee that we charge for administering the fuel site. So the fuel fund doesn't have an employee. The fuel fund pays for half of an employee and fleet to manage, bid the fuel, do the repairs. So that's what covers that. And then the depreciation cost is 16 cents a gallon. That's the fee for other departments to use the street department's fuel site that we charge. That's what gets us to the 315. For diesel, our base price that we're estimating is $2.98 a gallon with a 25-cent admin fee. It's 25 cents because we use twice as much diesel. 3 cents for an additive. We put a cetane additive and an anti-gelling additive in our diesel, and then 30 cents for the fee for using streets fuel site. So the other thing that's really telling about these prices as well is that unleaded, we buy non-ethanol unleaded, and it's basically a mid-grade fuel. So we are getting a premium type fuel for a pretty reasonable price at $2.80. We stay away from the ethanol because it creates a phase shift in the tank where once you get enough ethanol in there, it just all of a sudden splits and you have a bunch of water in your tanks and it turns to sludge. And then for departments like Parks and Rec, the ethanol, when their mowers sit over the winter, it just completely eats the gaskets up in the carburetors. And so we get a pretty decent fuel product for a really $2.80 base price. So expenses, like I said, there's no personnel. Operational expenses, that's to purchase fuel and any repairs that need done. And then we have the interfund transfer. That's basically the depreciation. So at the end of the year, or the fee, at the end of the year, fleet figures out that fee for the other departments, and then it transfers it to the street department as the payment for using that. The other thing, there's a little bit of a change in the bottom line from 25 to 26. Last year, there was a typo in the budget, I guess it would be. Our revenue showed the 80,000, but the expenditure didn't. So we've corrected that issue. So that's why this looks 80,000 more plus or 40,000 more, excuse me. So that is it on that one.
Questions, council? Okay.
All right, we'll move to sanitation.
And
Okay, now joined by Carrie Farnsworth, sanitation manager. Another shameless plug to the three of them, how great they are. We'll go with head count. Sanitation's fairly easy budget-wise because we do a 5-year rate analysis and rate study. So it's projected out pretty sustainably, I guess you could say, over the 5-year term. But we'll start with a head count. You'll see we're up 1 head count. That was the head count we hired to run the recycling facility after we purchased that. We added a senior operator to help with that. So that's where that additional head count came.
Mr. Mayor.
That's Councilmember Cheatham.
Mr. Mayor and Tom, we annexed several hundred acres this past year. Has there been any problem taking over the sanitation needs of that extra area?
There has. It has been a little bit of a challenge, but we're working through that. There's a lot of operational and logistic problems with that. But I think we're on the home stretch with a lot of that. We still have a few issues here and there. A lot of the trouble's trying to get to some of the houses because you have to go through multiple property owners' property on a private road. Getting waivers and stuff like that to be able to access some of those has been challenging. But we're charging the revenue, so it kind of offsets the additional manpower to do that. Are we gonna probably need to add some people down the road for that? Absolutely, depending on the growth rate out there. And that's something that we're keeping a close eye on with that.
But you've been able to absorb them, the service within the department?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
On head count, like I said, at some point, there may be, a time that we're coming and asking for that. Monday, we just started the commercial cardboard route. That has been very successful so far. We had basically Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday is when we do our pickups. We're seeing good numbers, a lot of good, clean cardboard. We're gonna try and absorb that as well. We're gonna try our best. We don't have a complete route on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so we're picking up cardboard in the morning, and then they're out dumping garbage from that truck in the afternoon. As that starts to grow, we may have to start dedicating someone to that, and then we'll have that discussion down the road. But the amount of money that we're saving now on recycling costs, I think that could be totally self-sustaining on that end. Revenues. Or did I miss salaries? Sorry.
Salaries.
This is basically just our salaries, just to give a little credence and validity to the rate study. We started establishing that 24. When we look at 26 personnel costs, it's $15,000 difference than what the rate study predicted. So I think our rate study folks do a pretty good job of estimating everything that we deal with. Revenues. So the last year of the rate study, in 24, what we were noticing is we were making about $1 million extra every year in revenues. We've been very successful in that. A lot of that comes into routeware, a lot of efficiencies that we found. We're making a whole lot more money because we're able to capture things better. And so during the rate study, we had better data because of routeware to be able to get a better handle on our revenues. And so through that, the consultant as well as us felt like that those revenue numbers need to be adjusted. And so that's why you see that increase from last year in 24. It's an $800,000 increase in revenues. We're looking at our projections right now, and we're looking like we're going to hit that number. So we're pretty excited about that. So with the 3%, that's what sanitation's rate increase will be. That puts us up to the 12.2 right there. We are, as we go to expenditures, we did have some good reserves because of that. We were over executing on revenues, so we're trying to spend those reserve dollars down as we go. So you'll see that our bottom line for expenditures is 12.9, but our revenues are 12.2. So we're steadily pulling some of those reserve amounts, and that's what we do at the rate study. We have high years, we have low years when it comes to purchases. So you'll see expenditures, personnel costs, we went over. O&M, we actually went down a little bit on our O&M stuff. We found some efficiencies there that we were able to try and dial in a little bit better. Our interfund is at 2.7 for a total of 11.1 or 11,000,001. For our capital purchases, we're very equipment heavy in sanitation. That's basically our capital is garbage trucks, garbage trucks, garbage trucks. So this year, or for 26, we're planning on getting 3 automated side load trucks and 1 roll-off for the 1.8. Side load trucks are now almost $500,000 a piece. So it's a very expensive purchase, and that's pretty much what drives our capital asks.
Councilmember Cheatham?
Mayor, Tom, has the county said anything about sanitation increases?
Yeah, we've reached out to them and we haven't heard back yet. So we're hopeful that not. We have had discussions with the landfill manager, and he is in agreement with us that we would appreciate a 5-year plan from them so that we can put that into our rate study. They historically have not done that, and so I think we've got the landscape manager. He's very good to work with. But if we can, let's try and do a forecast over a certain term so we can plan a little better. But as for today, we don't know that yet.
Okay.
Tom, I was talking to your sanitation supervisor the other day. Roll-offs, we're pulling a ton of roll-offs right now. Is 1 roll-off truck enough? The reason I ask, I think the other day they pulled 125.
Yeah, so those, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say those are our temp trucks. The roll-offs are the big 30-yard boxes.
Yeah.
And so, like as of today, this morning, we had 30 of those ready to go, which when we hit 40, that's probably our max for the day. So we're watching that closely to see. Right now, we are able to handle it with the trucks that we have.
And so what we'll do is as we see that growing, we may not trade a roll-off in when we get a new one. We may just keep that, and then if it stays consistent, then we need to, maybe make some amendments to our rate study that we need to buy a little bit extra one. We have, how many was it, 9 roll-off trucks? We have 9 roll-off trucks, and our operators, they can pull 7 roll-offs a day. And so just to give an example, so if you're at a construction site, we take one of those big dumpsters, they drive up, they set it down on the ground, it takes a few minutes. Then when it's time to dump that, they go and they pull it on, they drive all the way to the landfill. They have to wait at the landfill because there's always a line. So it's like a 45-minute wait at the landfill. They have to come back, drop it, and they can do that 7 times a day. I mean, in an 8-hour day, that's unbelievable to me. And so when we get 40 roll-offs, we'll have, all the trucks pulling 6, so we'll have 6 or 7, sometimes 8 trucks running, pulling 5 or 6 pulls a day. Just to give you an idea, a couple, years ago, they would do 15 a day, and that was it. So we've really stepped up that roll-off program because there's a huge need. And then to the mayor's point, the temporary container, those are the 3-yard containers like you'll see at a gas station. Most people don't offer that service. That's a service we really like to offer. So if you're cleaning your garage, you can call, we deliver, you keep it for a couple days, we haul it off. We're doing 125 of those a day where we used to do 30 or 40 a day. So we're hopping over there, and our crews are very, very good at what they do. They're very efficient. We found a lot of efficiencies with our software on all 3 departments. Our asset management tracking programs in streets, as well as our fleet management software and in fleet. We're very data driven, and we're able to find efficiencies that way.
Councilmember Nichols.
So what's driving the growth?
Amazon, I don't know how to say
We're
it politely.
growing though, too. I mean,
Yeah,
the
we're,
city's
we're,
growing.
absolutely, we're growing. Like, the roll-off, the roll-off service is a direct, to construction. That's what most of it is. And so the roll-off growth is just building. Plus, we're growing. I mean, we are servicing more and more and more. So the town is growing, a lot. The other thing, and for lack of better words, is we're lazy as a society now. We want everything delivered to our house, right? Our food gets delivered, packages get delivered. So we're just making more garbage as a human race, you know? And so, those are kind of the two big drivers, I think.
Got it, thank you.
Councilmember Cheatham.
So just to expand on that, then the roll-offs are construction-driven, the 3-yarders are residential-driven?
For the most part, yep.
Okay.
So, Tom, I'm just wondering if it would make any sense, if we're waiting at the landfill for 45 minutes, if it would make sense for us to, if the county would allow it for us to build a scale for the city only, that we could go through and,
They are planning that as we speak. They have a project planned.
Okay.
Where they're gonna put a public scale for, the public, and then they're gonna have a scale house for the commercial type accounts. What we've been able to do is, at the end of the day, pretty much everybody finishes their routes, right? Chubbuck, Pocatello, the county is a private contractor. They all show up at the landfill about 1:30. And so we'll have a line of 17 trucks waiting. And because of their EPA requirements, they have to cover the trash every night with dirt. And so they try and limit the amount of space that you can dump. And so it's just a gridlock, basically. So we've been working with the landfill very much. What we did as an experiment the last 2 weeks now, we've had a lot of our commercial, like our front load commercial trucks, we've got them now coming in at 6:30 instead of 7. And so they're showing up to the landfill a half hour before the rush. And that took 3 to 4 or to 5 trucks out of that gridlock. And we've seen, you know, there was times that we had guys up there for an hour and a half. And it's really nobody's fault, it's just that busy. They're down to, 30 to 45 minutes. It's a long process and then as these trucks dump, it produces such a pile. When the truck dumps, they have to take the dozer and they have to push it. And so it's just a time consuming thing. But like I said, the guy running the landfill is very open to ideas, and we're open to ideas to try and improve that.
it's just seems like a colossal waste of time to have a bunch of people sitting in their trucks idling and.
It is. But it's just like on a Saturday, if you've ever taken something to the landfill. And I mean, I've taken stuff and just sit clear down at the railroad tracks because there's just so many people. One thing down the road that we've talked about and that we might look into is building a transfer station. So we find a piece of land where all the trucks can dump it, and then we have big haul trailers. And so then we can load those trailers with a front end loader. And so we only have 2 trucks going back and forth to the landfill, and then the trucks are able to dump in a centralized location. So that's something that we're looking into because the landfill is frustrating, but they're doing the best they can. It's a popular spot. So, and it's the only one.
Councilmember Cheatham.
Can the existing landfill scale handle those big trucks? The transport trucks? Is the bottleneck at the scale or at the unloading site?
Both. Yeah. And unfortunately, all it takes is some person that doesn't know how to back a trailer that can shut down a lot, you know what I mean? So we're definitely looking at options because it's difficult for us to look at, what we do now is through Routeware, we have timers that we set. And so we have the drivers, when they go to the scale, they hit a timer, or when they leave their route, they set a timer, and then when they get back to their route, they set a timer. And so we can evaluate how long they're spending in travel as well as sitting at the landfill. So we're very aware of that, and it's as frustrating to us as it is to you, I'm sure.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Can I give one little thing? I forgot on
guess.
streets, because the chief talked about this a little bit. We have outgrown our traffic center. And so if, the chief and I have talked about this quite a bit. I think we could do a small expansion there and be able to support that for a pretty minimal cost. It could be both the benefit of us and them, so it could be a little bit of a shared expense. So down the road, that's something that we would definitely be interested in talking about.
Okay. Okay, now you
Sorry,
created another
sorry.
question. See, I shouldn't have let you go on. Councilmember Mangum.
So when you say outgrown, what do you mean?
We now have more cameras than we have wall space to look at. So,
It's a fantastic space. Like it's pretty cool.
yeah,
So it's just intriguing to hear like outgrown. Yeah.
pretty awesome. That thing is amazing what it does. It not only
do
for
remember
us,
the-
but everybody.
Sitting up there with like 4 screens and everybody thinking that was super cool, and now that wall is just completely full and
Like like if a football game at ISU's packed and it gets out, our guys can log into that and do a traffic plan to just dump that traffic. It's such a huge benefit to the city, so.
yeah, it is. Okay. All right, thank you very much. We're going to take a small break while Levi comes up here. And I think everybody knows a small break. We don't know how long that lasts.
75.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us after our break. We'll go ahead and get started with agenda item number 8. Agenda item number 7, water pollution control. Levi is not water department. Water pollution control, Levi Adams, water pollution control superintendent, will be in attendance to give a presentation.
All right, thank you. Levi Adams, Superintendent for WPC. I'm all by myself here.
Hey, you got it, man. You're good.
Start off with a personnel count. We haven't changed over the last few years. We've really only added a 1 or 2 head count over the last 15 to 20 years. We do help fund half with water department, 2 engineers and 2 techs. So you can see that those head counts are there, and we are fully staffed, which is wonderful. So it's only been about a month, but it's still great to be finally fully staffed and not having to hire people anymore.
Well, we've been trying to get to that point for 15 years.
It feels like it.
Councilmember Cheatham.
A couple of years ago, we had quite a talk about the need for certifications of people. Are you able to find those people as you need them?
Find them, no. Train them, yes. It's a very unique job skill to have. I mean, trained operators are usually, by the time they get their training and everything, they're pretty set in where they're at and what community they're in. Occasionally, we'll have people that'll move around because a spouse gets a job somewhere or something like that. But for the most part, we are hiring people with good attitudes and good work ethics and training them to do the job. I mean, we put a lot of money into our training budgets, and we send a lot of people to schools, and we bring a lot of schooling into our department as well, because we need to get them as educated and as trained as possible. Right now, we have a very young workforce. We've lost a lot of experience over the last 5 years, 5 to 10 years. You know, it's that whole wave. Everybody was kind of hired at the same time, then everybody retired. And we have a lot of young operators with class 1s and class 2s, where we want them to be 3s and 4s. The way our job descriptions are set up, they're incentivized to get those higher licenses because it's a greater pay grade. And there's different things that we're doing to get them there, but it just takes time. You get a new person in the building, if they do not have a degree, a college degree, it's going to be 12 to 16 years before they get to their class 4. Wow. With their degree, it does take some time off of that, but even at that, it's 6 to 8 years. So It's a lot of time, it's a lot of money invested in these employees. We try to keep them as long as we can, but you don't see people, because communities invest so much into these employees, they try to keep them there as long as they can. They don't bounce around much.
Councilmember Mangum.
What does the longevity look like of the new hires? Are they sticking around for several years?
So far, yes, we really don't lose a lot. Most of our we had a couple people that got like superintendent jobs elsewhere and retiring is the other part. So once you're in, we try to create an environment where it's a good working environment where people want to stay, and we keep them there as long as we possibly can.
Hostage situation.
Hostage, yeah.
I love it.
Okay, thank you.
Again, salaries is a big portion of our costs. Here, there are a few you can see where we have jumped up a little bit because we are now fully staffed compared to our actuals in '24, which is good. Young employees, young families, benefits, our costs are up a little bit because of that. But all in all, we're in pretty good shape there. Revenues, the residential and commercial is pretty easy to predict. We can add that 3% that we add on with our rate study to get those. Industrial, I like to underestimate what we're gonna get. You can see the actuals compared to the budget, but at any point in time, one of those large industries decides that they're gonna do something different, that revenue just goes away. So I don't want to rely on guarantee that money's gonna be there. The good news is that money stays within the WPC budget, and we can use that for our capital expenditures. I have a large list of capital expenditures. We got about $24 million we get to spend over the next 5 years. So it's nice having that extra revenue if we can get it in those situations. And then again, the miscellaneous, that was land leases and a few things like that we have, some recycle costs and things like that. And then we see expenditures. We have personnel is a big one. O&M varies. We did cut a little bit out this year. We had some major pump rehabs that we budgeted for last year, so that's why that's down a little bit this year. Debt service is the debt service payment. It's cut in half because we did pay off that one debt service that we had, so we are down to one left. It has, sorry, I don't have the date on that, but it's got 15 years left, I believe, is what's left on that service. Interfund transfers are up again, and then our capital improvements are actually down a little bit. We aren't doing any major construction or anything this year.
It's gonna be weird not going out there and seeing all the construction going on. like
You know,
you
I've
have
worked
the last couple of years.
I've worked 20 some odd years out there, and I think there's been like 3 years where we haven't had a construction project. So
Yeah.
it's always going on.
Yep. So we've got Councilmember Nichols and then Councilmember Cheatham.
What did the debt service pay for?
This debt service was for our filter building. We had a new permit from DEQ, which really restricted the amount of phosphorus that we could discharge to the river. And to do that, we put in a filter building. It was a $20-some-odd million project between that and new disinfection for the wastewater. And so that is what is it. We weren't able to build those funds in the amount of time that the permit gave us to get the project done. So it was a good $20-some-odd million to get that done.
Thank you. Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Levi, how goes the dry project?
It's going well. It's some tinkering. We've had some learning curves. Obviously, it's a brand new product, but we are doing well. Everything's getting dialed in. The important part of that is how much chemical we're going to use to get everything to coagulate together, to join together. And that's where the fine tuning is going to be, because obviously those chemicals, those polymers are very expensive. And so the less we can use of that, the less it's going to cost us to run the project. Right now, the employees having a summer is fantastic, because the way we used to run, we would be running essentially after every cutting of hay, we would be 4 or 5 weeks. And then at the end of the year, you'd be another 12 weeks. So you're looking at, 16 to 18 weeks in the middle of summer that these guys are working 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. And so the morale has been fantastic. Not having to worry about working all those hours in the middle of summer.
Is the construction that was necessary to make that happen finished then?
Yes, the construction's finished. It's been commissioned. We're up and running. Like I said, it's working well.
Good.
Okay, thank you. Oh, Councilmember Mangum. You didn't go fast enough, Levi.
So capacity-wise, we ask about this all the time.
Right.
How's the capacity? How are we looking?
We're in good shape. We average about 7 million gallons a day. We'll get a peak flow of around 10. The plant is rated for an average capacity of 14 million gallons a day, with peaks upwards of 20. The pinch point right now is in our headworks, the first part of the screening system. But when it was designed and built, it was laid out so we could easily add an addition to that building to get it all the way up to a $21 million average flow. Wow. So we're in good shape right now. We're ready to go. We have some drivers that were built into our facility plan. So we hit a certain point, we then will start designing construction and saving for those additions.
Okay, thank you.
Set of capital projects that we have coming up. There's not too exciting. We do have a couple vehicles that we're gonna purchase. Heavy equipment's kind of a misnomer. We don't have heavy equipment. We don't have heavy equipment operators. We are gonna get a Mini X and another skid loader. Right now, we have a backhoe that was old when I hired on in '96. So it's time to replace that one. It's served its purpose. Last year, we bought a front end loader for the dewatering project, so we don't need that in. So just a small piece of equipment that we can, excavate on the smaller projects, and that's what that's for. Facility and equipment and buildings, we are going to do an upgrade on a lift station in town. We have to continually do those. We have 23 lift stations through town, so it pays to keep the electrical upgraded, to keep everything up, move some of that stuff upstairs, above ground, because most of those lift stations that we're trying to rehab are what we would call a silo lift station, where everything is below grade. Safety reasons and other things, it's not a good design. We try to move that away from that, and so with that design, there's about $600,000 there. And then again, that mainline repair, in the past, we'd call that a CIPP budget, the cast in place pipe, but we kind of renamed that a little bit because we want to do other things than just that. We will be lining the pipes that we find in town that we need, but if there are other things that we need to do, some other repairs on that collection system, that's what that mainline repairs line is for. And then again, there's
Mr. Mayor, could I ask about that?
Absolutely.
Levi, do you have a planned sections you're going to use that on, or is this a just in case?
No. So right now we are going through, and through our SAC TV, where we go through and video the lines, and then the guys that go through and we jet every line every year. As they see things, as we find things, we'll build that list for next year.
Okay.
So right now we are building the list that we're going to bid out for 26.
Okay.
So we're always building and continuing. And there's some lines that say, hey, it's not quite needed this year, so it's on that list, it'll be next year. Things. And then as they come along, I said, we're in every manhole every year, so those guys are able to see the condition and how things are maintaining or degrading, and we can put those on that list, and then we keep that budget every year so we know we have. We may not spend it every year, but we want to have the money and the authority to do that just in case.
Good.
Okay.
And again, just a rate comparison, we have bragging a little bit, we have a very modern, a very well-ran treatment plant. We have an extremely good maintenance program and cleaning. Our collection system does not have any of the issues that you see in a lot of other cities. We are on top of things, yet staying on top of things, we still have a very reasonable rate. We are down there with that, even with our 3% increase. I feel that the crew that I have does a wonderful job, an amazing job with what they have to get things done. They're great employees, and I'm lucky to work with them every day. And with that, we're good, unless you have more questions.
Questions? Councilmember Paulson and then Councilmember Mangum.
About the rates, so is like Chubbuck, for example, almost double just because they don't have as good of infrastructure, or?
Not knowing their financial situation completely, a lot of this is speculation, but they also are still paying for part of that North District sewer system that they put in. Part of their rates are covering that as well, I assume. And then, they're setting their rates. They pay an in-city rate, basically what the city of Pocatello pays for their, what we treat. They have their own collection system that they take care of. I'm not sure if they're trying to get upgrades on that or what they're doing. So I'm not 100% sure why their rates are what they are, but that's, some assumptions on my part.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Mangum has waved me off, so.
I'll replace you.
Oh, Councilmember Cheatham will take his spot.
As I was watching the network news this morning, as I got ready to come down here, they were talking about looking at sewer systems and the measles outbreak. Do we have the capability of monitoring for those kinds of things in our wastewater?
We can. If you really want to get down to that, you can find anything in there that you want to find. In those numbers. You have to have the correct lab. It's more of being able to sample it and then find the correct lab. So you can go through and you can isolate. Collection systems are very similar, like a drainage system up in the mountains. So everything fingers down into central locations. So you're able to, if you were to put sampling points within that, you could narrow that down and go into those different areas. I know during the COVID outbreak, they did that in some different university areas. They would put samplers next to each different dorm and say, hey, there's an outbreak within this dorm or things like that. As an individual, Big Brother's watching me. I'm not really fond of that, but the capability is there.
But we don't have the ability. We would take a sample and send it to a lab.
Yeah, we would send
for
it off. We don't
analysis.
have that
Okay.
ability within our lab.
Yeah.
I like your hesitation. Well, okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, Levi.
I have a comment. I like the price point here. You hear people say it's so expensive to live in Pocatello, but over and over again, we keep seeing how that's really not true. And in multiple departments.
I
Not
agree, I
just-
love this graph. I love this one and the one with water I love.
Every time you guys come and show us this, I'm just like, way to go, Pocatello.
Well, it's definitely cheaper to live in Pocatello than it is anywhere else. but
Absolutely.
Thank you. We'll move to agenda item number 8, Water Department. Justin Armstrong, Water Superintendent, will be in attendance to give a presentation.
Good morning, Mayor and council members. Justin Armstrong, Water Superintendent. Personnel headcount, no changes in our FY26 projection. That's within our 3 divisions. We have 42 employees. As Levi spoke earlier, we also fund 4 engineering positions within the engineering support group. All of our employees are highly trained, experienced operators and also require those certain levels of classification as distribution and treatment operators. Salaries and benefits, as we kind of look at these, we've had some problems with some of our staffing, so you can kind of see the difference between our actuals and current budget levels. Currently, we've got 8 positions that are open right now. We have challenges within the construction industry of retaining people and with our operators. There's a lot of highway construction projects, fiber projects that are drawing some of our employees over to these other utilities and organizations. So staffing has also been a challenge, as other public works departments have stated too, so.
Councilmember Cheatham.
Has that handicap your department being that short, or how are you covering, I guess?
It does somewhat. Where we struggle is within some of our proactive maintenance type programs. It slows down our mainline replacement programs. We also have seen impacts to our valve exercising programs where we're not able to get out there and actually tackle some of that. There's a lot of development also that we're having to support. And so that kind of takes away. And so, we're adapting as necessary, as priorities exist. We're getting by, but it's definitely impacting our schedules and maintenance programs. So,
Can I follow up, Mr. Mayor? Has the water department been able to take advantage of the job fair that the city conducts every year?
we have not seen a high turnout of applicants that have come through the job fair. So, yeah, we're there to support and, look at those career opportunities and talk through those with applicants and potential candidates that have come through. But yeah, we haven't seen a big return out of the job fair. So, I don't know. It's tough to get that market of employees that, have the CDL. We're able to train those individuals in-house. We have a window. They use our construction equipment and other things. And so within that hiring window, they have 6 months to obtain that. We've hired several operators that have been great and successful in getting that training and up to speed. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
One more. We talked to Levi just a moment ago about the certifications needed for his department. I presume freshwater has the same sort of certifications as used water.
That's correct. Yeah, so all of our operators are required to hold a distribution operator license within the state of Idaho. That gives them the basic understanding of operations within the department. And then they can graduate up to a tiered level 4. Our system classification is based on our population measure. And so we are the highest classification within the state of Idaho, requiring operators that hold a level 4 license. That's our designated responsible charge operator. So they've got to hold that license to, keep us good with EPA and according to the state rules.
Do we need further incentives for retaining people who we have in the department? Is there need to be more done there?
I think some of the challenges that we're seeing is just, one is the difficulty of time on the job, of getting those licenses and, with their education or experience and things like that, all of that factors into when you can acquire certain licensure levels based on the state's requirements. And it's become definitely more challenging. The state of Idaho is very strict in their enforcement of licensures, especially with some of our surrounding states. Utah's a little bit looser, where you can have restricted licenses based on the system that you're operating, but you can test up to those higher levels. You just might not be able to transfer to another state and hold the same level of licensure.
So the problem exists at the state with what they're requiring then?
I wouldn't say that the problem necessarily exists at the state. It's just Idaho's very strict with their rules and requirements there. And so it's definitely impacting our ability to get some of those higher levels of like a class 3 or a class 4 operator. Because if you don't have some of that background education, you have to use your experience in lieu of education, and it's at a higher rate level than just a one-to-one.
Interesting.
You might be able to fix that a little bit.
Well, it's some of the talk about cost of building homes, and I think some of that may come back right here.
Yep.
Revenue requirements, so based on our 5-year rate study, we're looking at a 3% increase in our revenue projections. As you guys are aware, water is highly dependent on weather conditions, and it can vary from year to year. So I don't really have a crystal ball to tell you what the expectation is for, a year from now. But we just look at our average trends in our annual production, and production levels, we've been going down based on conservation measures and other things that we put in place. And so they've definitely been effective on, deferring some of these larger projects and other things like that. Capacity fees, you'll see within that fund, this is really our fund balance after payment of our bond debt. We have a bond debt that we pay of about $605,000. We've been in internal conversations on the bond and whether we should pay that off early. We do have the fund balance to, I believe, pay that off early and save a little bit of cash, and so we'll probably be bringing that to you in the future.
Good.
Personnel and expenditures, our biggest thing as we look at expenditures is really our capital needs, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. But some of what's driving our increase in operations and maintenance, we're looking at a facility plan update and study. We are 10 years out from our prior study that we began in 2015, and a lot of those capital improvement projects we've completed. And so as we've grown and expanded our system, it's time to renew that plan and look at that. And so that study, we're also going to incorporate a facility assessment to look at some of our major facilities, such as our pump stations, wells, and tanks. Some of that is definitely approaching the life expectancy rate, and so we need to look at those conditions and just see how we are, so we don't get into an emergency type situation.
Councilmember Cheatham.
Mr. Mayor, Justin, we've had a couple of tank projects underway. What's the status of those?
So, yeah, one of the tank projects you're referring to is our high country tank replacement. High country tank replacement, we're working with the BLM. We've got a current application out there for some additional right-of-way grant from them. Our existing lease had expired. And so with the BLM, they've had some staff turnover and changes within the federal government. So that's kind of pushed it just a little bit. We're expecting to get that approval by the end of this month, first of next month, and get the contractor underway on that. So, yeah.
Weren't there two tank projects?
No, just currently the one.
Just the one,
And
okay.
then we've got a couple well projects that we're working on and wrapping up, so.
Following up on that, I for some reason was in a passenger car and drove by the interstate and saw the east side of the interstate where we put the new line in. Is all that going to be cleaned up this year? There's still a lot of equipment and stuff laying around there.
Yeah, so currently that has nothing related to our project. Our project's been closed out. All the work's been completed on the booster station and transmission line. I believe they're currently working on that Monte Vista path. And so they've got some excavation equipment and whatnot that they're working with the landowner there, so. Our capital X projects and equipment. So we're actually down in some of our lighter vehicles. Lighter vehicles, we currently have like a 10-year replacement program on like pickups and plumbing vans and things of that sort. We've got a extended cab pickup that will be replacing a plumbing van and then a 1-ton service truck. Under our heavy equipment, we're looking at a new patch truck, asphalt truck, and then a compactor that we've been leasing will be up, and based on kind of what we've seen with leases and operating costs, it's almost more beneficial to purchase at this time. And so we've got that figured in as a purchase, as well as we've got a dump trailer that would attach to our dump trucks. That's figured in. So we're downsizing on some of our trailers, and so a trade and replacement there. As far as our meters, we're looking at going to the next level of an AMI or advanced metering infrastructure program in a pilot area, and beginning to explore that so we can capture real-time data from some of our meter reading. Then within our pumps and storage, we're looking at carryover for high country tank replacement, and then also well 17, which would supply the Highland Golf Course and kind of trim off that demand up in that area. And distribution, we try to replace about 1.5 to 2 miles internally in-house. Some of those projects are within the North Alameda area of Gray and Howard, where we've got water lines in the backyards and in easements that are very restrictive and hard to gain access and maintain. And so we would be pulling some of those water lines back into the right-of-way and reconnecting homeowners' service lines to those. So we've got some contractor costs to make those reconnections as well as do our mainline replacement, so.
Justin, this meter budget, is this going to be the start of another 5 or 6 year campaign to replace all the meters?
I believe we've got that programmed out for the next 3 years.
Okay.
But yeah, we want to look at a pilot area and not go full bore into it, just to make sure, communications, it would be building out some of that network, making sure that we have good communications from some of those meter sites to relay and, capture that data. We would use probably existing city facilities and networks, possibly fire stations or other sites to set up those communication areas. So.
Super. Okay. Councilmember Cheatham.
Mr. Mayor, will that metering project include the newly annexed areas that we've had in the last year, or were those already metered and already using our water?
Yeah, the properties that are already connected would be incorporated into that. But yeah, obviously there's some areas that have been annexed that are not currently on city water. They're in private wells and other things like that. But as they connect in, those would be captured at that time. And then the last slide here is our proposed fee increases and just comparisons with some of our surrounding communities. So this is based on the median single-family bill of roughly 6,000 gallons used on an annual basis. So median single-family customer, based on that 6,000 gallon average, is looking at about a 94-cent increase per month, or $11.28 a year. As you can see with our current rates, we remain pretty competitive, especially with the complex water system that we have and hillsides and pumping water up hills. Some of those requirements are not the same in these other communities, so.
Another great graft right there. I love it.
Another good one.
I do. I think they're awesome. Any questions for Justin? All right, thank you, Justin.
Thanks.
Then we will move to utility billing. Cindy Robbins, Utility Billing Director, will be in attendance for a presentation.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council members. It's Cindy Robbins, Utility Billing Director. So, first slide is our billing salaries and benefits. Our personnel, I wanted to talk about that. We are just a mighty team of 12 full-time employees. And that number hasn't changed since 2015. We have 4 of our meter readers, and then we have 7 in the office. So you can see our salaries haven't changed too much, our benefits, so we haven't really moved too much up in our personnel numbers. Our revenue, we are part of the enterprise group. Our service charges are our department fees that are in our resolutions. And that number can go up or down just depending on obviously what's going on. And then the interfund revenues, those come from the water, sewer, and garbage per the rate study as a transfer into our department. Our expenditures, pretty much our operating stays very consistent. We don't have too many changes. We don't have projects and such. So that's pretty simple. Next one, our cars, vehicles, purchases, we rotate every 2 years. So we keep one vehicle in our operating fleet for 8 years before we replace it, but that's on a 2-year rotation. We do keep the budgeted money in there like you'll see in fiscal year 25, just in case we have to replace a vehicle. We had an incident a couple years ago where somebody ran into us and totaled one of our trucks. So hopefully we are just on the 2-year rotation, don't have to have any surprises like that. So since I don't have any
Cindy?
projects, oh, I'm sorry.
We have Councilmember Paulson has a question for you.
Yes.
In billing revenue, why from 24 to 25 did it drop so much and then now stay stagnant on the revenues slide?
In which part?
Revenues?
Oh,
Revenues.
in
Yeah,
revenues?
service charges going from like 188 to 140.
We were
143.
estimating that service charge, like it says, that's one that can go up or go down. And so for budget reasons only, we're trying to say how much we believe we will bring in fees and things. And so we kept seeing where we were budgeting that high. And so we needed to drop that down to more of a reality there.
Okay.
Thanks for the question.
Okay.
So as I stated, we don't have the projects that I get to show or our goals or anything like that. So, but what I will like to brag on is we bring in, we reseed over $36.5 million annually through our department. Our meter readers, they are reading over 19,000 meters a month, as well as handling over 2,000 work orders, checking for high consumptions and things like that. So we're very busy and just very proud of the staff that I have to get to work with every day. So that's it for me. If you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Questions? All right, thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Well, that was quick. Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 10 is Capital Contingency Fund 078. Finance Department representatives will be in attendance to give a presentation.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm Chantel Macy from Finance Department. Just want to go for Fund 78 and Fund 16. As you can see, this is the balance total for, this is from all the general departments to save for future capital purchases. And that's the balance as of, I believe it was May 2025. Yeah. We also have our emergency repairs balance for Fund 16. It's currently $338,000. It looks like historically we've always tried to grab a little bit to save for the future. as you can see, that fund is a little low, something to consider in the future. But that's currently what we have in this emergency repair.
Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Who can access that fund? What department can declare an emergency?
That would be any department, sir.
Any department in the city?
And Nicholas Pocatello, Chief of Staff. Yes, that emergency repair fund is there for any department. We typically like to make sure that it's like a tax fund department, but any department is available.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
It would be something that they would request it through the finance department and the mayor's office. They couldn't just say, oh, I have this and send a bill. They would definitely have to have permission for that.
Okay.
Councilmember Cheatham, or I'm sorry, Mangum.
We don't even look like me in Mansfield. I'm trying to.
Well, I was looking at, I've got my little notes here, RC, and I realized he just answered his asked
Me
his
and,
question.
me and Josh looked exactly
You guys
alike,
look,
you know?
you're twins, but
So what is the funding source or the percentage for Fund 16? Is there a specific amount that departments are putting in? Are we pulling a certain amount? Like, how is that working?
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is we just pull money aside specifically for this fund. So it's not pulling from different departments, it's just a small amount we take to set aside.
Is there a percentage that we are looking at or a certain amount that we're looking at taking every year?
Haven't
or-
seen anything historically, but I'd have to look further and dig into the details more.
I might just throw this out there. I don't think that there was ever a percentage. I think it was just a number. We said we've got some emergency fixes that we're going to have years ago, and so we just picked a number, and that's where we were. It's not very scientific.
No.
If you want it to be, I
No,
guess we could figure it out, but
I'm not very smart, so let's stick to this.
this is what it seems like these are costing on an annual basis. We need to, historically, and we need to just keep up with that, so that's what we did. Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there any accounting of who contributed the funds in Fund 78 or to whom they are accountable?
Yes, we do have a spreadsheet and we can provide that information.
Could we get a copy of that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Chantel, Ann, and Theron for being up there. Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 11 is our Finance Department. Finance Department representatives will be in attendance to give a presentation.
Morning, Mayor. Morning, Council. Theron Hill, Finance Department. Going to go over the finance budget for 2026. So personnel headcount, overall headcount total is the same, but we did a little bit of restructuring. We dropped one non-exempt finance clerk position and added the exempt budget manager position. Salaries and benefits, pretty standard increase from 25 to 26. Looking at revenue, most of our revenue comes from interfund, interdepartmental charges for administrative support. Then we kind of have this catch-all other category that's mainly administrative fees that we charge the Business Improvement District in Old Town to service some administrative things for them. Moving on to expenditures. Pretty standard increases there as well. I don't think I had much to add. Yeah.
Questions? If you didn't ask the question, this was going to be the fastest presentation of the time. Yes, Councilmember Cheatham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a huge drop between FY24 and FY25 in other under revenue.
Yes.
Can you account for that?
Yes, so a lot of that other revenue was interfund money coming in to cover costs for our financial software. And then, what was the other thing? There was also plans to do some remodeling for the finance department to try to get us all in the same place. And he was also bringing money in from other departments for that. So that's where
Has-
that other revenue came from.
Was
That's why
that money
that's so high that
spent
year.
in those two areas?
The financial software project milestone payments were spent. The other, for that possible future remodel, that was not spent completely. I think some may have been spent on planning and blueprint documents, things like that, but that was it.
So will that money then revert to reserves?
Yes, it's in
yeah.
Fund 78.
78?
Any other questions, Councilmember Mangum?
Implementation of that finance software, how's that going?
That is a very good question. We're reviewing it right now to get a better idea of where we're at and what our plans are going forward.
So can I follow up on that? So my reason for that questioning is it costing us to just be sitting on this software instead of getting it implemented? And that's no knock on you guys or anything, but just
Yeah, no problem at all. So we
Curiosity.
pay in milestones. Right now, we're paid up to all the things they've done in the project. The next payment would be the completion of the project and the go live, which it's scheduled for September right now. So we do have time to review, make a decision, and we're not paying right now to take that time to look at it more closely.
okay. Thank you.
That makes sense.
Councilmember
So are we
Freeman?
running two software systems in?
Yes, one is in a sandbox test mode, and then we have our Naviline system of record that's been live this whole time. The other one is sort of a in development standby mode at the moment.
They've been very nice, councilman, to let us get in and play with it and start
I'm
to learn
sorry.
it before they,
Could you tell us who you are?
really, I did last time.
I know, but it's a new time.
Ann Nichols, Pocatello Chief of Staff.
Thank you.
So yes, they have been super nice to open that up, let all the employees get in prior to just going, oh, in a month, we're gonna switch, so you better hope to learn it. They've been incredibly patient and understanding and letting staff in there this whole time their sandbox has been created, so we've
Have there been any
appreciated that.
glitches?
It's new.
Always
Change is
glitches
hard.
on new things. Always glitches on new things.
So this new software, it's accessible to all departments to help maintain like individual budgets per department, or is it only finance department specific?
So currently, Naviline performs the function of utility billing and finance, and that includes cash receipting across the departments, accounts receivable, payroll. So departments do go in and they do certain functions in there, mainly cash receipting, payroll, a little bit of HR functions, stuff like that. The new software would take everything but utility billing function from Naviline. And that's something we learned significantly long into the project, is that Naviline would continue to be their utility billing software.
Did we not know that prior to purchasing?
We did not know that prior to
Okay.
purchasing.
But this new software is more efficient, I would imagine.
We're looking forward
We're
to
hoping
learning
it
it for
is.
the budgeting process and our APs and our ARs. Yeah, we're interested in seeing how that's gonna work for us going forward.
Okay. All right, super. Thank you very much. All right, council. We have a meeting tonight, council, so thank you for being here this morning. We'll see you a little bit later this evening, and with that, we are adjourned.